Welcome, everyone, to the Entertainment Arena, your go to source for all things entertainment, sports, and gaming, from business news to hot takes. I'm Tom Schultz. Thank you for joining me this week. And I'm sorry I wasn't with you last week, wasn't feeling 100%. That's not to say there wasn't a lot of news to get to. So let's get right into the action, starting with this past weekend's Super Bowl. And it was a great game. What started out kind of slow turned into a classic close game that saw the Kansas City Chiefs win in overtime for their second straight Super Bowl and the third in the last 5 years. The game was already going to be one of the biggest of the year, as the NFL has seen ratings this season increase year over year. And that's also because we saw two of the best teams go against each other. The number one NFC ranked San Francisco 49ers versus the second seed from the AFC in the Kansas City Chiefs, who are also the defending Super Bowl champions. Add in Taylor Swift into the mix because of her relationship with Travis Kelce. And breaking news, she got to the game very, very easily, despite being in Tokyo the day before. And you have what was anticipated to be the largest viewing audience ever in broadcast history. And that's exactly what happened. So let's take a look at the numbers, and they prove it. We saw 123.7 million viewers tune into the Super Bowl on Sunday. The game was broadcast on CBS, who saw 112 million alone on the channel. The other 111, well, that was combined across CBSSports.com and their app, Nickelodeon, which Paramount, who owns both CBS and Nickelodeon, had a stream going on Nickelodeon for younger audiences. That game's commentators also featured SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Star. Then we also had Univision, who had the Hispanic rights for the Super Bowl, Paramount Plus, which also was the streaming home of the Super Bowl, and other NFL digital properties like NFL Plus. And Paramount came out and said that Paramount Plus saw a record-breaking viewership, making Sunday's Super Bowl the most streamed game ever. Now, just like with other streaming services, Paramount's not going to actually release viewing audiences, but it's estimated to be around the $40 to $60 million range. As we know from the Peacock exclusive game between the Bills and the Chiefs earlier this year, that game was the most streamed NFL game with 23 million viewers. So you have to anticipate that it was bigger than that audience. Then there's the ads in the game. This Super Bowl saw the most added marketing revenue in history. Being that the game was in Las Vegas, that helped with in-stadium and in-city marketing. Las Vegas, the Strip was a marketing spectacle. The Sphere was used nonstop as a scoreboard during the game, as well as featuring other properties such as SpongeBob SquarePants to promote the kids streaming and other sponsors of the NFL. The Luxor was turned into a mega-sized Dorito chip, and the Bellagio fountains had shows that were themed to the NFL, including their signature NFL Films music. And as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the Super Bowl commercials have been sold out since October, and they cost roughly $7 million for a 30-second spot. Temu spent the most money for spots in the game at $21 million for 3 spots. But we'll get into advertising a little later, especially since they may not have been that memorable. And finally, the halftime show. Apple sponsored the halftime show this year with their brand Apple Music for the second year in a row. Last year, they brought on Rihanna, and then this year they brought in Usher. Usher's recently had a residency in Vegas and is dropping new music and going on tour in 2024. So this was the perfect opportunity for him to jumpstart his marketing campaign. Now, the halftime show famously, the NFL does not pay their performers for the halftime show, and that they are essentially guaranteeing free marketing for their platform. So the performers actually pay for their setup and the stage and production during the game. But that also equates to streaming on Apple Music, Spotify, ticket sales, album sales, and more. So we'll definitely see that coming for Usher most likely. But he jump-started his marketing push with a strong performance in his show. He sang his iconic hits and brought out guests like Alicia Keys for My Boo, will.i.am for Oh My God, Jermaine Dupri, who has been featured in numerous Usher songs in the past, and ended his show with his iconic Yeah, featuring Ludacris and Little John. He even brought out her to play the guitar as part of the band for the show. Now, as I mentioned, the commercials, they weren't as memorable this year. Usually there's like big spectacles in the commercials. Yes, we saw a lot of celebrities be featured, but they just weren't as memorable. As mentioned, Temu, the Chinese e-commerce store, dropped $21 million for 3 spots. You had BMW with Christopher Walken featured in a spot. Paramount Plus went after nostalgia with brands such as Reno 911, Patrick Stewart playing Jean-Luc Picard, and then you even had him throwing Hey Arnold from Hey Arnold as a football. Then you also had Michael Cera saying he was the reason why you had lotion behind the name CeraVe Lotion. But the 2 biggest commercials, not counting the movie trailers, which we'll get here into a little bit as well, were that of Dunkin' Donuts and Verizon. For Dunkin', they pulled out all the stops. The last few years, they've been in the Super Bowl featuring Ben Affleck as is the Dunkin' spokesperson, and that makes sense. Being a native Bostonian, he'll want to promote one of the most iconic brands coming out of the New England area. And then also, he brought back his wife, Jennifer Lopez. She has typically been in there as a humor role. What this one was, again, a humor role, as she was a producer in this commercial, but not a producer of the spot, a producer for Ben Affleck's boy band in the commercial that featured 2 other Boston icons, and Matt Damon and Tom Brady. It was entertaining. That created a lot of discussion, especially since it matched the quirkiness of Dunkin' Donuts' color scheme with that of its humorous marketing campaigns. And then there was the other big one, Verizon. They partnered with Beyonce as she tried to break the internet, with Tony Haley also being featured in that ad. Tony Haley being from Arrested Development and Veep, and no need to mention who Beyonce is. But what didn't come across with this campaign is, as she was trying to convey that she was going to break the internet on the campaign, it was actually a message that she was going to do something. That was drop 2 new songs and announce a new country album after the commercial. The problem was that wasn't mentioned in the commercial at all, and no one really understood that reference. And it didn't get the drive that both Verizon and Beyonce thought it would. Now, that's not to say that since the commercial and word got around that she has new music coming out, that it's not streaming the new songs. They are still some of the most downloaded and streamed songs since Sunday because it's Beyonce. But I don't believe that Verizon and Beyonce actually feel like the commercial generated the discussion points that they thought it would going into the game. And as mentioned, there were movie trailers. Now, Super Bowl recently has become a big platform for movie trailer premieres. And that all started with Deadpool 3. Or should we say Deadpool and Wolverine? The most talked about trailer since going into the game, rumored to be shown during the game. Well, it dropped at the very beginning of the game, right before kickoff. Deadpool Wolverine is Marvel Studios' only theatrical release in 2024, and it's clear that people still love Deadpool. Since the trailer dropped at the Super Bowl, it has become the most watched movie trailer of all time. Within 24 hours, the trailer had been watched 365 million times, according to Disney. That's not just on Marvel Studios' account. That's also Ryan Reynolds and other platforms on YouTube, other channels where you can watch the trailer. Disney also released a second trailer for Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, which again looks fantastic. And I talked about a couple weeks ago how this film is one of my most anticipated films in the first half of the year, especially how it's really expanding the Planet of the Apes franchise and diving into the story 300 years after Caesar is leading the charge to take over the world. Disney also released a trailer for Pixar's Inside Out 2, the sequel for the beloved movie coming out later this summer. Universal is also a big player in the movie's trailer game. They dropped 6 trailers. The first was Twisters, the sequel to the 1996 thriller, and this movie now stars Glenn Powell. This is really going to dive deep into that lore of the franchise of Twister and see what exactly it is that made the movie so great in 96. This is a reboot, and they're hoping to continue the franchise if they can really deliver on this movie. It also gives Glenn Powell an opportunity to leverage his stardom to try and actually open a movie by himself. We know he was in Top Gun Maverick, but that was a Tom Cruise movie. And on top of that, it also had Miles Teller. Universal also released trailers for Despicable Me 4, Kung Fu Panda 4, and The Fall Guy, featuring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Then, near the end of the game, they dropped their final trailer for Monkey Man, the movie starring Dev Patel, who he also directed it, and then this is Jordan Peele's next movie that he is producing as well. It's an action thriller movie, and it's being acclaimed and compared to a John Wick style movie featuring Dev Patel. But the biggest trailer for Universal for the Super Bowl was that of Wicked. This is the big screen adaptation of the beloved Tony Award-winning musical based on The Wizard of Oz. The film stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, or the Wicked Witch of the West, Ariana Grande as Glinda the Good, Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz himself. Then you also have Michelle Yeoh, Jonathan Bailey, and Ethan Slater. This film has been in production for a little bit now and has been, wrapped up in a lot of delays, starting with COVID and then the strikes last year. It was supposed to actually be released last year, but Universal delayed it because they weren't able to get both Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, as well as Jeff Goldblum and other members of the Screen Actors Guild to promote the movie, knowing that it wouldn't do well without them promoting it. As we saw last fall during the strikes, it was really tough for studios to open movies and a lot of films were delayed. This movie looks visually stunning. I've seen the show on stage and it is actually one of my favorite shows I've seen, but there is a flaw to the trailer. Actually, there's two. The first one is that it doesn't tell people that this is actually a musical. You actually hear Cynthia Erivo say words from some of the popular songs, but you actually don't hear him singing it. And then two, it fails to say that this is part one of two. And the reason why that's a big deal is because it needs to be said that this is part one. Universal understands that this Wicked story is really big. There's a lot that is done on the stage that they want to bring to the movie. And they want to make sure they don't miss a single beat. But however, two-part films have not been sticking with audiences well and not really been captivating them. I think it'll change with Wicked, though, because it's one of the most beloved musicals on Broadway, as I said, and is one of the most critically acclaimed as well. It's won the most Tony Awards in the history of the show, and it continues to be one of the longest-running musicals of all time on Broadway, including The Lion King, Phantom of the Opera, which just ended, actually, among others. Some other movie trailers that dropped really were also Paramount dropping their trailers for A Quiet Place Day 1, The Quiet Place prequel, Paramount Plus's Sonic spinoff show Knuckles, and If, Imaginary Friends, the John Krasinski directed and starred movie, also featuring Ryan Reynolds. But now all eyes turn to New Orleans in 2025, where Super Bowl 59 will be held. Fox takes over the broadcasting duties, which means it's a return to the Super Bowl, sort of, for Tom Brady. As a reminder, he's due to join Kevin Burkhardt in the broadcast booth next NFL season and replace Greg Olsen. So that's an interesting thing to watch next year as we get ready for the 2024 season. Now on to some breaking news from earlier today, Valentine's Day, February 14th. And this is coming from Marvel Studios. We got a casting announcement for one of its most anticipated films in a long time. That film is the Fantastic Four. This has been really anticipated since Disney purchased 20th Century Fox and got the cinematic rights back for the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Now, while rumors have been circulating for a while now, and an appearance from Reed Richards by John Krasinski happened in 2022's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we actually haven't received any word or confirmation, just rumors about the cast. And that's changed. And here is the Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, as they are known. Some of the names look pretty familiar, I'm sure. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see some of the faces here. It goes as follows. Pedro Pascal continues his dominating run in franchise and will play Mr. Fantastic, a.k.a. Reed Richards. For those who don't know Pedro Pascal, he is pretty much Mr. Hollywood right now. He stars in Disney's The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, Game of Thrones, and more. Then you have Sue Storm. Sue Storm will be played by none other than Vanessa Kirby, no relation to the Fantastic Four's co-creator, Jack Kirby, who created him with Stan Lee. And this is a perfect casting for Sue Storm. She fits the mold perfectly. She has both action and drama experience, and again fits the mold of Sue Storm. Vanessa has been seen in the Mission Impossible franchise lately and also played Princess Margaret in the first 2 seasons of The Crown on Netflix. Sue Storm's brother, Johnny Storm, will be played by Joseph Quinn. Now, Quinn is a relatively newcomer to Hollywood, but he also has been on a hot streak of casting lately. He's due to star in A Quiet Place Day 1 and Gladiator 2, both due out later this year. But where everyone will see him really is that of Eddie Munson in season 4 of Stranger Things. That was his breakout role and really what led him to get this role. And then finally, Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, will be played by Emmy Award-winning actor Ebon Moss-Bachrach. Now, people may not know Ebon, but they definitely seen him. If you watch FX's The Bear, that's where his Emmy Award-winning role comes from. He's also been in Andor, another Disney show, No Hard Feelings, starring Jennifer Lawrence, and AMC's Nosferatu. He was also already seen in a Marvel show before on Netflix's The Punisher. Now, again, I really feel this cast is perfect. They look exactly like the Fantastic Four. In my opinion, they each personify the Fantastic Four, and really, it's going to be a fun film. The film goes into production soon and is slated to come out in July 2025. It will be one of 4 Marvel films releasing in 2025, along with Captain America: Brave New World in February, Thunderbolts in May, Fantastic Four in July, and Blade in November. But that was just the capstone of a big week for Disney, as they also last week announced the surprise sequel for Moana and Moana 2. Originally supposed to be a Disney Plus series, Bob Iger and the people at Walt Disney Animation felt the show was so good when they were teasing it that it needed to be a film. I actually think that's a questionable call, though, because Disney Plus needs more strong original content that's not Star Wars or Marvel. In fact, the streamer just received its first showing on the Nielsen streaming charts for its first non-Marvel or Star Wars property in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. What a great show that was, too. It was a lot of fun. Now, this film is slated to come out this year in November and is both going to star Alihi Carvalho as Moana and Dwayne Johnson as the god Maui. It was announced that there was a live-action remake of Moana coming next year, and that is still the case. That movie is set to star Dwayne Johnson still as Maui, and he'll produce it as well. But again, a big week for Disney last week, as they also made the big announcement for sports, and that is one with Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, and ESPN forming a joint venture to launch a streaming sports service in the United States coming this fall in 2024. Now, this is an interesting move and one that a lot of people are curious to see. So what are the details? Well, we know again that it's being backed by Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers, with each of the companies owning 33% of this service. It'll be its own entity as well. It'll have its own marketing team. It'll have its own president, finance, things like that. All 15 networks that are owned by Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery that air sports will be on the platform. So no Fox News or Fox Business will be on there, no ABC News, no CNN. The service will air for the 4 major professional sports: Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, National Football League, and NHL, as well as the PGA Tour, the WNBA, NASCAR, the college sports that the rights are held by both Disney and Fox, that is college football, basketball, and then the rest of the college sports are on ESPN with baseball and the Olympic sports, tennis, and World Cup soccer. Now, you'll probably notice 2 big absent networks missing, and that's CBS and NBC. They will not be on the platform. That means no Sunday Night Football, no NFL that airs on CBS, so mainly the AFC, and no college football that airs on those networks. So no Notre Dame home football games or Big Ten or SEC or Big Ten and ACC on CBS. The service is anticipated to launch, and NBC. The service is anticipated to launch this fall in time for the football season and is expected to be able to be bundled with Disney Plus, Hulu, and or Max. Now, while the price hasn't been announced yet, it's estimated to be in the $30 to $50 a month range. Bob Iger also noted that this will not affect Disney's plan to launch a standalone ESPN streaming service next fall 2025. But why are these networks doing this? Well, for starters, two of the companies behind it are the rights holders of the NBA currently, and ESPN and Warner Brothers Discovery TNT. They saw success in sharing the broadcasting rights to the NBA's in-season tournament, which starting next season will be called the Emirates NBA Cup. This is likely also to get ready for a fight for the streaming rights to the NBA, as those negotiations are for the TV and streaming rights are set to take place very soon. It's likely that Amazon and Apple will be a big player in those discussions, as both have been trying to grab more rights for major sports for their platforms. Amazon has their NFL's Thursday Night Football. They also have NASCAR, and they just made a big investment in the regional sports networks that are operated by Bally Sports and Diamond Sports. Apple has Major League Baseball's Friday Night Baseball and the MLS broadcasting rights. As I predicted a couple weeks ago when I first relaunched the entertainment arena, I still believe Amazon is going to be a major player in the NBA discussions and could eventually take them or be added on. But this move will also create tensions with the cable providers, which we saw in full force last fall when Spectrum and Disney were in a battle between the rights fees, and all the Disney networks were pulled from Spectrum cable. And possibly the sports leagues themselves. The NFL was reportedly caught off guard this weekend when the announcement was made, as it actually competes directly with both its YouTube TV service Sunday Ticket, which is also currently in a legal situation, and their own streaming service NFL Plus. But it's creating something that people turn to streaming to get rid of: high costs for TV and cable. And that's what leads me to this week's What to Watch For.
What to watch for.
What to watch for is where we make predictions based on what's happening on the news in the sports and entertainment world. And this week's, again, it has to be no secret, we're talking about the sports streaming app from Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers. Now, this app is essentially creating something that people have been calling for, which is a streaming bundle. And that's because it's believed that the networks themselves that are going to be on there, primarily ABC, Fox, TNT, TBS, ESPN, you name it, they're going to be showing all of their programming on there, like The Bachelor, The Masked Singer, Big Bang Theory reruns. We're going to wait and see what happens there, but that could also create drama, as I mentioned, with the cable providers and other streaming platforms. Both Amazon and Prime Video and Apple TV create channel pages for the individual streaming services, so it's easy for you to find the programming on those streaming services. Then this also leaves out, as I mentioned, Paramount Plus and Peacock, since both CBS and NBC will not be on the streaming service. This could hurt those platforms. This could hurt them in a big way, even though they air a majority of the PGA Tour, except that ESPN Plus has the PGA Tour live rights. So that's how the PGA Tour will end up on the streaming service. That leads me to my prediction. We're going to see some major reshuffling with streaming here soon. We're going to see streaming bundling happen outside of this app or service. If it actually happens or not, we'll see. But we'll see something that's going to actually lead to either streaming services being shut down or merging completely. Could it be Paramount Plus or Peacock, the two lowest streaming services from the major providers? Fox doesn't have a streaming service. They invest in Tubi, the free service that has ads on it. Could we see merging? Like I mentioned, Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount have been talking about a merger recently, as it's rumored. I really just see this as the beginning of the end for a lot of the streaming services and being the beginning of the reduction scene. We know that Netflix is going anywhere. They are the winners of the streaming wars, as we now see content from other studios being put back onto Netflix. And we now know they're trying to get into the live sports action, despite what Ted Sarandos says, their CEO, because they now own the rights to WWE. So again, I really do believe we're going to start seeing a reduction of the streaming services, and bundling is going to be necessary. And that's our show for this week. As you see, the different bundles here are going to be the big ones here. Thank you for coming to the entertainment arena. Still got some kinks to work out here, but we're getting better. Check out thesportshangover.com. Bunch of swag and merchandise there. We know it's going to be sunny here in the next few weeks because spring is right around the corner. Check us out on Instagram at The Sports Hangover. the_sports hangover, TikTok, the sports hangover, and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/sports hangover. And for more sports, entertainment, and gaming news, make sure you come back to the entertainment arena. As I mentioned last time, I'll be starting the YouTube exclusive series, Real Reviews, where I break down movie and TV reviews, both old and new. Again, that's coming very soon. Until then, take care, and I'll talk to you next week.